No, it's all very straightforward. And next on Drive Time, I'm delighted to welcome Sir Terry Pratchett. His latest book is called Snuff. Sir Terry, how are you?
Fine, thank you very much.
This is the studio of Sir Terry Wogan, so there is something about the words Sir and Terry.
Well, there's lots of Sirs around, and lots of Terrys too.
I think the last time I interviewed you, you weren't a knight. I think that's
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, what difference does it actually? Do you get a credit card? I mean, are there robes or a special hat or something?
No, you don't even get a sword.
There should be something.
Yes. Someone said to me, "What's a knighthood worth?" And I said, "Nothing and everything." If I need to bully civil servants, and believe me, some civil servants need bullying. We live in a bullying culture now, I think. It's always helpful on the letterhead. People don't know how to talk to knights anyway. People say, Sir Pratchett. And I say, for heaven's sake. I say, look. I give them the little thing, look. It's Sir Terence or Terry or Mr. Pratchett or whatever you want, but Sir Pratchett just doesn't work. There's no format for that. And you'll know this. You'll go into a posh hotel and they put up, the hotel so-and-so welcomes Mr. So-and-so. They don't know what to do about knighthoods. So it was like Mr. Sir Blurp, and you could see that the computer could not actually understand the concept, which was fun. I liked getting in the way of the computer, that someone actually had to think about what they were doing instead of pressing a damn button.
So do you behave in a different way?
Yes, I suppose I do. I thought it was quite amusing that people must have advised the Queen to give a fantasy writer a knighthood, because one of the things I did very soon after I was knighted was actually make my own sword. Not only make my own sword, but to dig the iron ore up out of the ground and smelt it in my garden. And with the help of two people who were experts first of all in smelting and then in swordsmithing, I made my own sword. Every bit of which I'd handled in my own hand and hammered. And when I took it up to see my colleagues in the Knight's Bachelor, I passed it around and they were all admiring it no end.
Does it have special jewels in the...
No, but it has thunderbolt iron in it. It has a certain amount, quite a large amount of meteoric iron in it, which actually makes it a little bit more mystical. And it is, in fact, been christened, because a knight's sword should be christened.
And what's it been christened?
It's called Thunderbolt Iron.
Call it Thunder for short. That's great. Do you think the Queen had read any Discworld?
I've heard rumours that Prince Charles has, but I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you this. At Buckingham Palace, they work it out very well, as you will find out when you're knighted in your term. Because my mother was disabled at that time, and we all went up there. And when we went in, a little side gate where we knew we had to go in, a cheerful-looking policeman banged on the window and said, we'll just go down there, Sir Terence, and we'll be back to see you later on with our books to sign, which was a good start. And then my mum was whisked away in her chair and then disappeared, and the next time we saw her, she was sitting close to the Queen, and being of approximately the same age and with the same hairstyle, I had to worry whether I'd take the right one home. But it was done so smoothly, and for the second time, because I'd had the OBE anyway, I realised that the honour system isn't all that bad. I mean, people say it's elitist and everything, but most of the people who get there are people who've been doing sterling work out in the shires, been a postman on the same route for, a whole lifetime. And they get their various gongs and they come away and their face is like the sun. And just for once they've shaken hands with royalty and been in Buckingham Palace, and they're going back and they're going to be in their local papers. And what other country's going to give you that kind of stuff? I rather like the monarchy because I don't really... Because what else have we got? Only politicians, I'm afraid.
So maybe there's nothing wrong with elitism as long as anyone can join it.
Exactly. It's elitism for everyone.
We haven't mentioned the book at all.
No. Well, let's do a bit of that then.
Which is entirely inappropriate, for which I apologise. But anyway, there's so many things to talk to you about. So Snuff, fantastic one-word title. Can you explain? This is another Discworld.
Well, first of all,
novel.
it's about dying, of course, but also it's about a certain tobacco product. And it's really the simple outline thing. It's a police procedural. I mean, a real police procedural. Commander Vimes of the Ankh-Morpork City Watch is on holiday. And, of course, anyone that reads any crime fiction knows what happens when a policeman or a private detective goes on holiday. Instantly, there's going to be a corpse somewhere, even before the bucket and spade has been taken out. And there he is outside his jurisdiction in a place where there is no law, dealing with, homicide. Actually, it's Goblin side. So if you get
you just made that word up.
Well, yeah, I had to, because I could see the way you look at me.
The murder of a goblin.
In a very funny way there, the murder of a goblin, yes. But this is, everyone knows goblins, wretched, horrible things. So do ignore the slaughter of a goblin, which is something that fought back and was capable of asking for mercy. And so it actually becomes quite heavy. There's a sequence in there which is a pastiche that I'll leave to the imagination of readers, which I really enjoyed doing, but
we're in the realms.
Jane Austen won't seem the same again.
So Sam Vimes is back. He's our commander. Young Sam is there. Lady Sybil is there. Just to explain a little bit more about the goblins, because I'm interested in that, because part of the book feels like it's about the slave trade, and you're using goblins as a way of.
Well, it's not really. It's using slave trade as a marker, so people will say, this is not, as it were, our slave trade, but this is a slave trade, so people can at least know what the kind of thinking is behind that, how we should feel about that sort of thing, especially now after all these years. But also, of course, the fairy stories are responsible for a lot of things, good and ill, like one of my favourite sequences, not in Snuff, but in what I've worked on, there's a girl who reads in a book. In the middle of the wood was a wicked old witch, and she says to herself, "Where's the evidence?" Because in old times, if you had a hooked nose and your kids had died off, then you were an old witch anyway, and people might just accuse you of nasty things. So I thought the goblins always get the dirty end of a stick, in any kind of fairy tale. They're always the nasty guys. But what happens if you just think of them as the people on the fringes that didn't quite make it, and they're pushed into the places where there's not much to eat or anything like that? Then you're going to get goblins acting like damn goblins. Just
explain a little bit about the religion that you've given goblins, because this...
this
is great fun.
Yeah, well, of course, they save their own earwax, snot, and fingernail clippings, because they believe that those things you have to have with you when you die. So they make pots to keep them in.
You said that there was a sequence that you particularly enjoyed writing, the Jane Austen section. When you're in the moment, does it... Because I think you dictate your books now. Largely, is it just unstoppable? Do you speak faster? Do you just stay with the writing process for hours and hours and hours?
If you're in the zone, you want to stay in the zone as long as you can, because in the zone is where the creativity comes up. There's another book I'm working on, and there have been several occasions on that when it's the same thing. What I have here is a rolling ball, call it a snowball. And if I follow, my subconscious has woken up and is saying, this is how this has got to go. I'm lining up in front of you what you're thinking. And you bang that one down as fast as you can, knowing that there's going to be a second draft where you can actually wipe its nose and comb its hair. But when you are in the zone, you fly, and it's amazing what turns up. The whole of the ending of Snuff, you will remember the harp sequence. That was in one great big go, and it just came out bang, and it deserved to do that. I was very surprised in Snuff. Every moment handed itself to me on a plate at every time. I knew what was coming next and how it was going to go. But of course, it was a police procedural, and we know in some way what police procedurals are going to be like, because the guy's not going to say, sorry, I haven't found anyone who's guilty yet, so I'm going to go back home.
No, it's an ordered world, isn't it?
It is an ordered world. I mean, in the same way that I think very, very few murders have been as Hercule Poirot discovered them. You don't normally get all the suspects in one place.
How many books are you writing at the moment?
With Stephen Baxter, who's, I think, our best science fiction writer in the UK, we're working on one called The Long Earth. It's an idea of mine from a long time ago. In fact, if I'd carried on with it, I'd probably been a science fiction writer instead of a fantasy writer. And it's set in the very near future where we discover a key to what we call the quantum worlds. You must have heard the suggestion that there are multiple worlds.
The multiverse theory.
The multiverse theory, yes. Well done. And we find a way to get into every one. It's a little box, and it's always Earth. And the interesting thing starts when we find out that there don't appear to be any humans in the other Earths. They're nice, they've got all the stuff we need. And the question which is fun to ask is, now humanity has, as far as we can see it, billions and billions of worlds which are Earth. A few little differences here and there, because this is quantum we're talking about. So, the big question in my mind was, how on earth will we manage to mess it entirely up? What defines humans? Scarcity. We fight over all kinds of stuff. Not enough land, not enough resources, not enough oil. What happens if you drop humanity into, if you like, a galaxy of worlds which, in fact, are accessible just by walking far enough?
Wow. I'm looking forward to these books already.
And I've got another one on the... Because
is this Dodger? You've got another one called...
I'm working on Dodger. It's very nearly Discworld, but this is what I'm doing in my spare time.
In your spare time?
Yeah.
Sir Terry?
Well, all I can say right now, because I don't want to give too much away, it's set in early Victorian England. It's only a fantasy novel in that one person in it does not exist. In fact, there are two people who don't exist who are in it, although one of them, quite a few people would believe did actually live. But he's more of a myth than a real person.
Okay, so that's Dodger, and there's The Long Earth. There's a listener's question. Steve Eustace sent me this question on Twitter. Does Sir Terry know how the Discworld series will end? Will there be a final book?
My life is not finite. I have no interest in seeing anyone else carry it on after me, because I don't know how well they'll do it, except my daughter Rihanna. People keep coming up to me and saying, will you leave Discworld to her when you die? And I said, if she wants to do it, because she's made a good name for herself, writing the scripts for computer games, and she's moving on even from that, I'm pleased to say. If she wanted to do it, I would say, oh, wonderful. Here's a few plot lines I haven't thought of. Here's some of the twiddly bits that I think you probably know anyway. But we have barely discussed it. But things come to an end.
And maybe it's ridiculous to even talk about it. You seem to be in the middle of a creative surge, and I've interviewed you a number of times over the years.
Well, I always am.
But you seem to be as unstoppable as ever.
You're avoiding the word Alzheimer's, aren't you?
I wasn't deliberately avoiding it, but what I'm saying...
I could see your face was deliberately involved. I've been around with Alzheimer's for some time, and I recognise this sort of thing. PCA is rather different. It more or less sits on top of Alzheimer's. I can dress myself, and I can do a whole lot of things for myself. And I can also certainly write books, because some of my best books have been written while I've had Alzheimer's. But one day I'll stop one way or the other, and if someone wants to carry on, that's fine. I won't be there to say no anyway, really.
Well, you seem in fantastic fettle, I must say.
Oh, thank you. In a sense, that's why I write books on books, as it were. It never stops, and that keeps you going somehow. It's as if whatever gives you all the ideas also keeps you alive. Admittedly, sooner or later, you just cannot dodge the entire pressures of the universe, and all of us eventually die. But I'm having quite a lot of fun on the way. And
we'll have fun reading not just Snuff, but looking forward to The Long Earth and Dodger at least. And I imagine by the weekend you'll have a few more projects on the go as well. And you keep bullying civil servants.
Yeah, they need it. It does them good.
Sir Terry Pratchett, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
To listen to more